All right, so tutorial number 5, we're going to be going over the basic 3D operations, the most important of which is going to be extrude. Extrude is basically what you're always going to use if you're making geometry, either extrude or revolve. Um, you're basically going to make a sketch, and then you're going to use an extrude to either remove material from a part that you already have, or to actually create a part just from nothing from a sketch. So let's just say, make a sketch on this face, and put a circle here. And then I'm just going to dimension it. We'll say it's going to be 7. And then I'm just going to exit. To select the sketch, I can either click it and extrude. That's the extrude command right here. Or I can go and hit extrude. And then it wants to know what faces or sketch regions to extrude. So I'm going to select the sketch that I just made. And you can see it's starting to extrude, literally extrude the circle I made into a 3D object. So there's a couple different there's a lot of important things here that will change what happens here on the extrude. One important one is solid versus surface versus thin. I'm not going to go over thin because I don't really use it, and I don't think you will either. So I'm just going to focus on solid versus surface. You probably won't even use surface, but the difference between the two is, as you can see, if I check the box and actually like create this extrusion, you can see that's a solid, like it's a solid 3D piece. If I come over here, apologies, come over here and edit this extrude by right-clicking, clicking edit, you can also make it a surface. And then if I select that sketch, now it's an infinitely thin cylinder. You can't really make this in real life, so again, you're probably not going to use it either. So but now you know, if you get this, that you just have it set up wrong. That's more why you need to know that if you're getting something like this and that's not what you want, make sure you select solid. Next important thing is new versus add versus remove. So if you're just now creating a new part, right? You're only going to be doing new. If you want to create a part, you're doing a new. If you're doing add, it's basically adding this extrusion to another part. And when you start to add or remove, which we'll get to, or actually let's just do that right now. Remove is the exact opposite. Instead of creating a new part, obviously we're going into midair over here, but if I go in the opposite direction, we're going to cut a circle, right? So, and both are useful in different ways. You can't cut in this direction, it's not going to let you. So if you have an add or remove, it's going to ask of you what the merge scope is. And when it says merge scope, it's asking you what part in your studio are you doing this operation to? Obviously, I want this part, and it's pretty good at guessing. But if you ever see that it's not doing what you want it to do, you should check the merge scope. Because if I select this one, obviously, it's not going to be able to add to that part. They're not touching in any way. So I got to make sure I select this part. And the same will go for remove as well. There's a lot of different end conditions that you can use when extruding. Blind is just a blind depth. We're just going from here to here, and we're going to 10 millimeters away. That's all it's doing. But what if I want to, say, extrude this to this surface over here? Well, we would use up to face. Say up to face, and then I'm going to select this face. And it seems to be going in the wrong direction, so I can just flip the direction. It is odd that it would be better if they could tell that, but yeah. So that's another thing we would have gotten to later, but the direction matters, and you can change the direction right here. There is also something called up to next, and it's I can demonstrate it better if I use the remove tool. and say up to next, it'll automatically go to the next face. So we started on this face, it's just going to go to the next face. Oftentimes this doesn't work, and you're going to have to use up to face and be more selective. But every once in a while, up to next will work faster for you, and you won't have to make a weird selection. Up to part, and I mean the only other one that up to part isn't used very often, and you can figure that one out on your own if you find the need. So let's go up to vertex. It's very similar to up to face, but instead you're going to hit select a vertex. And it did technically remove, but let's, this vertex over here is probably more, demonstrates better. So it's going up to that point I just selected, that vertex. And then through all, it's just going to go straight through the whole part in whatever direction you selected. Yeah, so that's the basics of the extrude. So let's move on to the next most common one. I'm going to delete this because we don't really need this. Delete that sketch. Let's say that we want to kind of do something like this, where it has a profile like that, and you want to wrap that profile around the center line. You could make this out of extrusions, but you could see that there's a much more efficient way to make this with like one or two, maybe two, definitely has to be two for this cutout right here, but if you imagine there was no cutout, you could actually make this in one operation with something called a revolve. So I'm going to make a sketch. Let's see how I made this one, because that could help. We have that center plane right there, so let's make it on the right plane. Make a sketch. And I'm just going to draw a half profile of the thing I want to revolve. And if it's not making sense, you'll understand what I mean soon. So if we have a center line, for revolve, we almost always want to make a center line. So we can convert this to construction. I believe we could even make it infinite. I'm not entirely sure. No. So let's constrain it. So I'm going to make it a midpoint for here to here. It's not working very well. Okay, next we'll try using the project tool, making this a construction, and then midpoint, midpoint. There we go. Okay, so we have our center line. We're going to revolve a profile along the center line. So let's just get our line like this. Boom, 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 boom. In fact, that's going to cause problems. So let's just go like this. There we go. So this should be that's not collinear yet. So let's use our constraints that we just learned. Oh, yeah, there's no collinear. Okay, coincident. Like that. I'm going to make this perpendicular to this, but really you can do whatever you want because this is just a practice. And then let's just say this is 3. This angle is 45. Oh, and we also need a closed off sketch. So I'm going to put this right here. Wow, that didn't work at all. Made a little tiny line. There we go. So now we have a closed shape. This center line, I'm going to extend it out a little bit. So I'm going to be lazy because I want this video to end sooner. So I'm not going to fully constrain this, but really you should if you were actually making a part. So we have a closed off part. Let's now show you, so you can see it's unconstrained. Let's now show you the revolve. It's going to ask for an axis. That's why we made that center line. And as you can see, it revolved that profile around the axis that we selected. You don't necessarily have to use an axis in the sketch. You could use an axis somewhere else, like a line. But like let's say if I select this, it's going to revolve it around that axis. It's a little confusing, but that you can see how that would work. So we're going to go about that axis. And like the extrude, we have all the same things here. We have solid, surface, and thin. So if we make it a surface, if we select these, it's going to start making a infinitely thin object, which again, I don't think you'll ever use, because I don't, at least. And then same things. We have new, add, remove, and intersect. We're not going to use intersect. So if it was new, it's just going to create a new part, and it'll be added over here. If you're adding, you're going to select your merge scope, just like we did with an extrude. And for remove, it's a little harder here because I made this sketch out here. If I had modified this sketch slightly, like let's delete the revolve first, and made it down here. Let's delete this. And I just pushed all of the sketch. This looks terrible. Don't ever make a sketch like this. But so now our sketch is down here and it's going to intersect with this part, right? And it should make sense to you now that if I do a revolve remove, select the revolve axis, it already gave us our merge scope. So now it removed that material from a part. Very useful. Extrusions and revolves are super useful. So let's just undo everything we just did. You can change the sweep angle of a revolve. So if we go in one direction, and now it's at 30 degrees, I can go 45. Useful tool. You could also change the direction away from the face versus towards the face. You could do symmetric, 45 degrees, but split by the sketch. You could do two directions. One's 45, one's 330, which means it went all the way this way. You get the point. But full is probably what you use the most. So yeah, that's the extrude and revolve. Now the last thing I want to, the last two features I want to go over in this tutorial that are, I would say, are the basic 3D operations are the fillet and the chamfer. A lot of people like to say fillet. It's not fillet, but you can call it whatever you want. Fillet, I'll know what you're talking about. Sometimes we want to get a nice rounded edge like this right here. And if you think about it, like, there's no tool I've given you so far that will make this easy for you. You could probably figure it out, but it would be difficult. So every CAD tool has a way to add those rounds. It's called fillet. And I'm not going to go over all this crazy stuff because I really don't think you're going to need it, and you can always look it up. But you're just going to select the line you want to fillet, and then it's going to give you a radius. You can also, there's different ways of doing it, but so here we have 1 millimeter, go to 2 millimeters, it gets larger, 0.5 gets smaller. So that's the fillet. And the same thing goes if you want to add a flat to your corner. That's called a chamfer. Same thing. You select it. I believe, I don't exactly know how this is calculated. What is 1 millimeter? I believe it's this direction, normal to the, like, if you split the angle normal to the surface, that's 1 millimeter. Either way, it makes your parts look nice. You will probably have a fillet versus chamfer preference, and you're going to argue about it with your classmates, and that's okay. Either way, just make your parts look good. It's good to have good looking parts. So yeah, 2 millimeters is larger. It starts to get problems with calculating your fillets. So let's just say 1.5, or we can just select a different one. So they go 3. See how it gets larger. All very useful tools. You're going to be using extrudes, revolves, and fillets and chamfers a whole lot. So definitely pay attention to the things in this video and try them out for yourself. See you.